Saul and Battery. Goodbye now in Cali.
And Mike.
Forget what you know. Forget what you know. It's Saul and Battery.
Before we get to the much awaited what Mike has kind of, are you ready to go to the 30-second yet, or do you want to go?
So I was all prepared to go to the 30-second, and then I lost my notes.
Okay, so we'll give you a minute this week.
So I think it's going to need to be a minute. I jotted some stuff down right before we got on tonight. So
Okay.
I think I'm going to be pretty good, but I don't know if I could do 30 seconds.
Okay, fair enough. Although you're pretty good at this, so we'll before we get into that recap, any just kind of top line reactions to this week's episode?
Really, really liked it. There's a lot of stuff that I want to kind of get into with it that even a 1-minute recap, I think this is going to be the hardest one yet to do a recap for in a minute. Yeah.
Okay, well, we will talk a little more about that in a second. Let me get things set up. That's fairly visible.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I will go ahead and start the timer when you start.
All right. Gus beats Hector in a game of shirts versus bobbleheads. Mike stops for ice cream. Hector skips the drive-thru. Kim confuses millennials with a phone book. Mike proves he's handy with a camera. Gus and Mike's bromance blooms at night. Power couple Kimmy have something in store for Coward upon hearing. After the hearing, Chuck's villain monologue about the tape. Done.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't know if I can do 30 seconds. Shut up.
What did I? What did I do?
22 seconds. We were under 20. Well under 20. I got up and did it from there. So, well done.
I really didn't think I had it because I my other notes, my actual prepared notes were tighter than that. So,
but you nailed it. You got all the highlights. So, very, very cool. All righty.
I'm mostly proud of myself for coming up with power couple names.
I like that. I like the millennial comment. I thought that was really good too.
I really feel like I killed it because it's two sets of power couples going up against each other, Kimmy and Coward.
I totally missed Coward. I got Kimmy.
Yeah,
I missed Coward. Excellent. Well, that's like gold.
That's what I was most proud of. So I was glad I remembered that from my original notes.
Oh, it's excellent. Very, very cool. All righty. Yeah, so this was kind of weird for me. This because I was traveling this week, and so day of, I wasn't able to catch the show from its entirety. I caught like the last third, so maybe about the last third, and then I was able to kind of catch up with it the other night in its completion. And I originally thought, wow, not a ton happened this episode. But then as I went back and looked at the notes and got ready for the show, I was like, not a lot of crazy action happened, but a lot did happen. So it was good. And I'm super excited. Next episode, whatever Kimmy, power couple Kimmy's coming up with for Coward, we're going to see that's going to bear fruit next week. So I'm super looking forward to seeing what the game plan. And I would like to, before we get off tonight, see what your theories are on that. But
I have a couple, because that was the main thing. Like my main takeaway from this episode was, what do they have planned? Because I initially couldn't figure it out. I have some ideas now, and I'm really curious to hear yours.
Yeah, I think it's great storytellers. But so the name of this episode was Sabrosito. which is Spanish for coward. Is that what it is? I don't know. I'm assuming.
I have no idea.
Maybe it's ice cream. Maybe it's, I don't know. But it's a cool name. And we open up with a very, very familiar scene where we're back in Mexico in Don Eladio's complex. And he's in the pool, just like he is in Breaking Bad at the end, although not quite as good. And so Hector shows up, and he's getting showed up by about it.
Now, I had a quick thing with that. I love the way, like, as soon as they started unpacking the money from Gus, it had me thinking, like, all right, if I was giving kickbacks to a cartel, how would I package the money?
Theoretically, you were thinking about this.
Theoretically, hypothetically, if I was running an illicit operation and giving kickbacks to a cartel, how would I package the money? Because Hector's just seems sloppy, but at the same time, Gus's is almost a little too OCD for me, so I feel like I'd have to go somewhere in the middle. How about you? When you're running your drug operation and giving kickbacks to the cartel, how do you package up the money?
But I would tend, in the continuum of sloppy Hector to super neat Gus, I would tend to go a little bit more towards Gus's approach, because I'd like the cartel to be 100% sure they're getting everything they expect from me.
That's true. I mean, obviously you want them to be satisfied with your performance.
Absolutely.
I would imagine that's an incredibly stressful review once a year.
Yeah. If you thought employee reviews were bad for other jobs, I can't imagine the cartel ones particularly on the fun side. Then we cut back. We come back after the cold open, which again, it's everything in Mexico is shot with that yellow filter. And then Vince Gilligan on the Better Call Saul Insider podcast that they do says he considers this like and I forget if there were 62 episodes of Breaking Bad, but it was somewhere around that, or 63, and he considers this the 64th episode of Breaking Bad, because just when you think about some of the visuals and all those types of things, this particular episode looked a lot like Breaking Bad, I thought.
Yeah, more so than anything. We've definitely seen stylistic callbacks to Breaking Bad and Saul before, but more so than anything else, I would say this episode looked and felt more like an episode of Breaking Bad.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then we come back, and the Hector's outfit's getting busted. Mike's watching that with great pleasure. And then he syncs up with Kaylee and her mom, and he visits, and he's clearly troubled.
Are you sure? Because he says he's fine.
I'm not buying it. I think there's something's on. He's never like a happy guy, but he does seem to be reflecting on something. But he does say
it's definitely an introspective moment.
Yes, and he's turning down ice cream, so he can't be all good.
That's when I know that there's something wrong. So I don't know about you, Kelly, but I'm a huge fan of ice cream.
Absolutely, can't do without it. I'll eat ice cream every opportunity I get, whether all the time.
I'm a huge ice cream fan as well. In fact, when I was writing my essay to go with my admission information when I was applying for college, my essay, you were supposed to write an essay about what that particular university could do for you, your education that you would acquire from them. I wrote a paper called I Like Ice Cream.
And how'd that go over?
Well, I got in. In fact, they offered me early acceptance based off of that. They skipped. Typically, they would do a portfolio review with you as a part of your entrance exam, and they skipped that, and they were like, you can start right away.
So was this like it needed to be 400 words, and it was like, I like ice cream. I really, 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 really.
Almost, and it was pretty funny because I only applied to one college. Like I looked at a few different colleges and ultimately only submitted an application to one because I decided that's where I was going to go, not even taking into consideration for a second that I might not be accepted into that school. and I submitted this essay without showing it to anyone. So after I had already filled out my application, sent it in, and submitted my essay, my dad was like, "Hey, when are you going to send your application?" And I was like, "I already did it." Showed him this essay, and he's like, "So you're not going to college?"
But you proved him wrong.
Yeah, it's true. But the importance of the reason that I say all of that is it really underlines the fact that he is not fine if he's turning down ice cream. No one who is fine doesn't want ice cream.
That's absolutely. And poor Kaylee's got to watch old man movies with Mike, which has got to be about. I mean, she likes her pop, but I can't imagine she likes his movie selections very much.
Right. I mean, obviously, it's more about the quality time for her, and she ate ice cream though, so
yeah,
she's having a good time.
The dog looked like it wanted some of that ice cream too. So old guy's not going to eat any. And then we jump over to Polos, and Polos has some new customers coming in, and it's Nacho, which is this is the first time we've seen Nacho this season, I think. And it's awesome to see him again. Yes, and then Hector and a bunch of other thugs, and they kind of they want to talk to Gus. Although when Hector came up and talked to Lyle, who who I guess is the manager in charge when Gus isn't there, by the way, who has dead guy written all over him, in my opinion.
Yeah, his yellow shirt was basically a red shirt, I thought.
Yeah, I think we got to kind of see a little too much of Lyle in this episode to say his chemometer is not good. I have his chemometer at about 98.
Yeah, he is not surviving the next drop in from Hector and the gang.
No, but they when he went up to Lyle the first time, and Hector speaks with a fairly thick accent, and I could have swore that Hector came up and said, "I want to see your balls,"
which is my favorite line of the show. "I want to see your balls" was my favorite line of this week's show.
I thought that would be your quote, but then I said, "Oh, he's boss. He wants to see his boss."
I was going to go with the more like Butt Brothers when they were by the poolside, because I felt like I've been missing my mark and going with slightly higher end quotes, so I needed to get back down to the roots.
Yep.
But I want to see your balls though. Mike, take it this week.
That's pretty. Yeah, had it been said, I think that'd have been a home run. So they're he's giving the whole crew's giving them crap and intimidating customers and the employees and helping themselves to stuff and smoking cigars and all that. And then we cut over to Gus, who's at a fire station. Did you recognize this fire station, Mike?
So I felt like I was supposed to, but I couldn't put it together when I was watching the episode. Fill me in.
This is the fire station that Walt drops Holly off at the very end of Breaking Bad.
Okay.
So another nice little Breaking Bad Easter egg there.
I felt like when they were showing the fire station, like this isn't coincidental that we're showing this fire, because I think we're both on the same page, and anybody who's watching this says that this is an incredibly tightly written show. So I feel like there really isn't any filler in this. So if they're making it a point to show you this fire station, it's for a reason.
Yep. So nice call back to that. And so Gus makes his way back and meets with Hector, who explains that now that Gus is going to be his mule and ship his stuff, and they leave, and Gus cleans up, and at the very end of it looks actually like he's not entirely. He thinks seems like he's got this is a show of people having plans that they're not telling us. It's bothering me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could tell that Gus was mad that he interfered with his front business, but at the same time, now Hector's giving him access to his product, which is ultimately going to be Hector's undoing, I think.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because the Hector we see now is significantly more mobile and in better shape than the Hector we see in Breaking Bad.
Right.
And I keep wondering about who's going to be the catalyst for Hector to have his stroke. And I had assumed for quite some time that would likely be Gus or Mike. But now I'm kind of wondering at some point if Don Eladio comes back into this somehow too, because I don't know if the cartel is going to be super happy with him. But we'll see.
Well, I think what we're seeing is, Gus is going to use Hector's product to expand his own business. But I do think it's whatever is going to transpire between, personally, I think whatever transpires between Hector and Don Eladio is what's going to lead to the strip.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then we cut to Mike in the booth, his other side job. And poor Victor, I think Victor has made a career of trying to give money to people in the Breaking Bad universe and people not wanting it. And he gives Mike a load of money, and Mike flips it back in and closes the window and goes back to reading his Handyman magazine. And so, anything on this particular setup?
No, I mean, I think, again, although I feel like we already knew this, but we're establishing that Mike is doing a lot of this for his own reasons, not just personal gain. But I think we already knew that.
Yeah.
If anything, this scene was really, to me, just to set up the scene later where Gus pays him a visit, because we didn't learn anything new about the character. We already knew that he was doing this for his own purposes.
Yep, no doubt. And so we kind of come back again. Now we're back at Polos, and it's a traumatized Lyle and crew as they're trying to get ready to go.
I feel like Lyle still has a lot more shit coming.
Yeah, Lyle is, I don't know, man. I worry for the guy. He seems like a stand-up.
Are we gonna have to, along with the Kimo meter, are we gonna have to have a Lyle meter?
A Lyle-nometer, yeah. Lyle-nometer.
I like it. A Lyle-nometer.
Yeah, so I think we're going to need to be running both of those now, and I don't think Lyle's is going to look too good.
I was going to say, for me, Lyle's starting right near 100%. He's like 98.
Yeah. That's where I'll put him, I guess. Yeah, and I still haven't gotten to our graphic for that, but one of these days, folks, soon. But Mike and I will share with our words. We'll paint a picture for you where the Kimometer and the Lyle-nometer are at various points. And of course, and in fact, Gus in his typical Gus way goes, and if any of you need, trauma assistance, that will be provided. And he said, it's all taken care of. And they were bad men, and I gave them money before, but I sent them running like the dogs they are. Which is like signing Lyle's death warrant, in my opinion.
Yeah, pretty much. Because now, so like, I get it. Gus had to go in there and give them the coach speech so that they, did run away scared and alert any sort of authority. But I do think that this speech is going to give Lyle a false sense of confidence that will not work out well for him during his next encounter with Hector.
Yeah, because Gus painted a picture that said, I told him this is America and you have no power here. And if Lyle spins that line to them, it's not.
Yeah, because and again, in Lyle's thinking, Gus, a lone man, stood up to this entire gang and they went running. So why wouldn't he think a younger man could stick up to them and have similar results?
Yep, it's not going to end well.
Poor Lyle.
So then we cut back, and so Mike, why don't you, for our millennial listeners, and we know, why don't you explain to them a little bit what was that strange device that Kim was using to try and secure phone numbers?
So this is where really, so you were a Mad Men watcher, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you know how they went to such great detail with the cars and architecture and scenery and things like that to create the period mood?
Absolutely.
This is where they truly nailed that on Better Call Saul, where I felt like I was in that era again. Well, I was never in the era of Mad Men, but for Better Call Saul, I was alive in that era. And they brought out something that many of our listeners right now probably won't understand, but pre-Google, if you wanted a listing of types of businesses or people and ways to contact them without social media, you needed a phone book where all of this was organized in analog form for your perusal. It's sort of the vinyl of Facebook and Google.
It's a great way to describe it. Yeah, and that was how you found numbers, kids, back in the day. and
it's funny too, because beyond like the joke that I made in the recap, that's really what I thought as I was watching that scene. I was like, somebody's watching this who doesn't know what that is.
There's a book with numbers. That's crazy. That's lazy writing. Oh,
why isn't she just looking it up online?
Yep. And so we're in the scene, and so this is where my quote of the show comes from, and that's our good friend Francesca, because she's clearly in the bubbly mode with her, the Cracker Barrel chat crew, and we kind of come in mid conversation, and Francesca and her most supportive. This is still the Francesca that has hope and light behind her eyes before that gets crushed working for Saul. And she's like, well, Pomeranians can be difficult. And so that's my quote of the show.
It's good. It's no, let me see your balls, but
no, it isn't. Yeah.
It's good though.
The actor could have totally said that, but I don't think he did. And they're working on the statement. And so this, and then we're going to come into the next scene. So in the scene, as they're working on the statement together, and Jimmy's incredibly appreciative of Kim's help here, and that's made very, very clear in a kind of nice, touching moment. But there's a shift from the language of destroyed to damaged.
Right.
Do you think that was intentional? Did you think that they were backing that off because they knew Chuck wouldn't have that and would back it forward? Or do you think that they were just seeing if they could get away with kind of downsizing the size of the offense?
So it's hard to say, because initially I thought they were downplaying it for their own benefit. But then when you're sort of tipped off later that everything went the way they hoped it would at the hearing, maybe they knew he would jump on that and they wanted that for whatever it is their plan consists of.
Yeah, it's tough to say, and maybe we'll get a little more insight next week on that. But they're sharp cookies. And so then we cut over to Kim had used that arcane device to cancel a visit by a repair person, and Kim asked Jimmy if the guy who's going to be going in their place is solid, and he's like, creme de la creme, and it's Mike, so he's absolutely right. So Mike shows up at Chuck's house and keeps Chuck at bay with a power drill, which is pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, it's clever, because I was wondering how they were going to do that, if he was just going to show up with like a hammer and nails and be there all day, how he would keep him at bay. I kind of figured he would use something electronic to keep him away. I thought maybe he was going to tell him he had to like set up lights or some sort of equipment, but the drill was like funnier.
Yeah, and it was like just like kind of a shock collar for a dog. He kept Chuck plenty far away. That's
a perfect analogy. It's like a shock collar to him. So that's what made it funnier than if he had just set up lights or a generator or whatever it was. It could have been anything, but
yep.
It was the perfect choice with the drill, because it really was like a shock collar, like you said.
And once he gets Chuck scared upstairs, he ends up taking pictures of the house. And I'd sure like to know a little more about that.
Well, so this is up until this point. I mean, so the tinkering with the wording, I took to be them just trying to minimize events in their version of it. And as far as the pictures went, to me, that at this point, because we don't know yet what we're about to know, at this point, to me, the purpose of the pictures is to just establish that Chuck is crazy when they have to go up against him in court.
Yeah, I do not see this going well for Chuck in court at all. So, but I think that that's clearly the route they're going. And so then Mike comes back, is sharing the pics with Jimmy. I love that Jimmy, Jimmy, hey, these are really great. We should talk about the rule of thirds, which is for anyone who's done photography, just kind of a composition thing, which I found it hilarious that because I don't think Mike's particularly interested in the rule of thirds, if I were to guess.
No, I feel like he wasn't going for art so much as just getting the job done.
Yep, absolutely. Calls him the Ansel Adams of covert photography. And then he gives him something else, which we don't see what it is. And it was apparently it was just by the address book, or it was in the address book, or something like there. And then Jimmy tries to get him to rip on Chuck, and Mike's not buying that. Won't diss Chuck. But any theories on what was the additional item beyond the photographs that Mike picked up there?
So at that point, I'm going to say little to none. The only thing I could think of is maybe it was some sort of contact information for the PI. Up until that point. Now, by the end of the episode, I have a different idea.
Okay.
You?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards the PI, and that because I think it's just they're going to be building this case, because it's some of the other things that kind of come up at the end of this episode kind of even further cement to kind of make it very, very clear that what happened here, Chuck engineered a lot of this to happen, and so having the information for the PI could be good. The only other thing I wonder about, and it comes back to what you talked about earlier, that these guys don't waste any energy. They don't throw stuff out just to throw stuff out. In the previous episode, when Jimmy broke in and he was really angry, he brought Rebecca up again, which, outside of the one episode featuring Chuck's ex-wife, we haven't heard of her. And he just kind of in the middle of his rant goes, "No wonder she left you." And I just wonder at some point if it was contact information for Rebecca, so that during this hearing, they're going to bring her in to say, "So tell us a little bit of why you left Chuck."
You know what? I think you completely nailed it with that. Because what I was going to say is maybe it was some sort of storage or safety deposit information of where they could find the tape, because they knew that there must be copies of the tape.
It could be that too.
Or the contact info for the PI. But now I really think you nailed it. I think it's probably the contact information for Rebecca. Because what I really think, and to me it's sort of driven home a little bit later, when Chuck is explaining to Kim, that going up against a bar review is something completely different, and that the threshold for what's permissible or what's acceptable is much lower. I think that that's in part exactly what their plan is, because just like Chuck is going to be there to try and discredit Jimmy, they can spin the entire situation and discredit him.
Yeah, I think they're going full scorched earth with Chuck, which I don't mind entirely, but it's still going to be a tough scene to see because his pride is such a part of him. If they start to dismantle him in front, because people in this bar group are his friends, and it's going to be painful. But we get back to the booth. Go ahead.
I definitely think that they're going to come out victorious from this battle, but I think that the process of this is what's going to get rid of probably the last of what's left of Jimmy.
Yeah, because he, in a way, it depends. Does if they don't prevail, is it his license is he completely disbarred? Is it suspended for a year? And he could bide his time and come back. But yeah, I just kind of do think that they're going to come out on the winning side, but the price is going to be high. So we'll see how it goes. We may lose the last parts of good Jimmy at this point,
which I think is rapidly approaching at this stage. I feel like we're seeing him slowly transform into it, and now I just think everything that's about to transpire is just going to speed that process up dramatically.
I can see that. And then we get back to the booth, and Gus stops by. "May we talk?" And he kind of offers Mike a job. Say, "I'd like for you to work. Why'd you get the money back?" Mike said, "We're square." He said, "I'd kind of like you to work for me." And Mike said, "Well," he didn't say no. He said, "It kind of depends what the work is." And then he explains that the reason that he did not, he stopped Mike from killing Hector is that a bullet to his head would have been far too humane. Well,
I do think, we obviously at this point, we know what happens to Hector and Gus and how this feud ultimately plays out. But it is interesting to kind of see the early phases of it, knowing that they will eventually be each other's downfall.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's so cool. I knew I was going to enjoy the series, but I'm just enjoying it all the more. These guys are just so great at what they do. And then we get back to, I'm assuming, Hamlin, and McGill. Unfortunately, not in the room with the really cool table lights, but they're in some other conference room. And they turn off all the lights, and they go through the pre-prosecution diversion rules, the whole damaged versus destroyed conversation. And in the ultimate Chuck's a dick move, when they come to restitution, I'm assuming $321 was the cost to repair the door. And, of course, Chuck wants that increased to $323.98 to cover the cost of the cassette tape that was destroyed, which is kind of a jerk move.
Definitely a jerk move, but also it really establishes where Chuck is at this point. Like, this is, to him, is, you know, the victory lap. Like, he's standing over Jimmy about to take away his license.
And $2.98 more of your money for my new tape that I'll never use.
Just rubbing it in his face.
And so the Chuck's attorney, who seems like a very competent woman, and I'm just not liking her now because she's being mean to Jimmy, and she's making Jimmy apologize to Chuck, which is totally uncool. And what Jimmy gives, what appears to be a fairly sincere apology. She makes him make eye contact with him like a fifth grader. But he also does manage to work in, a little bit of like, no one should ever do something like that to a brother kind of. So I think he's laying a little bit of groundwork there just to kind of try and get into Chuck's head. But it was an interesting scene there. And then as they leave, Chuck, in his usual condescending way, lets Kim know that, this is your first one of these, and Ray Seahorn's reaction to that, just, she doesn't say anything, but her body English was, you could tell that got under her skin. But he goes, this is the first one of yours. The standard for proof is far more lenient. I think that's not wasted words either. That's going to cut both ways. Chuck's talking about it because he says, I'm going to get this tape in. I've got an extra copy of it. And Kim knows that now. And the standard's a lot more lenient for bringing stuff in, which is, I think, how they can bring in these photos and other things as well.
Right. I think that their plan, well, also, I think there is a possibility that they knew or assumed going into it, of course, that he had an extra copy of this tape. So I'm wondering if while Mike was there, if he searched for and possibly found this tape, he could have tampered with it or replaced it with something else.
It's possible.
It's possible, but I think definitely whether the tape was touched or not, they're going to go at him and discredit him as much as they possibly can, and I think successfully so.
Yeah, I think he's given him. There's a lot of material there, and Kim's very happy with however she and Jimmy connect up at the end of it, and she's basically goes, so how'd it go? And she goes, bingo. So I don't know whether it was the existence of the tape or the fact that they want to play the tape in court. So I don't know what they were really going after there, but whatever they're going after, they got. So
right.
So we'll see.
Because I could see, again, his hubris is going to be his downfall here. So I could see him, let's just say they did tamper with the tape in some way or switch the tape for a tape of something else. I could see him, not listening to the tape beforehand and just allowing it to be played in court when it's either going to just make him look foolish if the tape is damaged, or there's something different they switch the tape for that's going to maybe be a recording of him to make him look bad. But either way, with the photos, with whoever they're going to contact, with the page that Mike pulled from his phone book, obviously they're going to go at him and discredit him, which wouldn't be that difficult to do.
Not at all.
Once you expose everything about him.
Yep. So So I'm sticking with my quote of that Pomeranians can be difficult. Are you sticking with "Show me your balls," or did you have a different?
Yeah, I mean, so it was my actual quote was the more like Butt Brothers,
Okay.
but the "Show me your balls" thing, while if that were a real line in the episode, would be the victor there.
So we'll give you two. We'll give you the one actual one from the show, and then what could have been.
What could have been.
What could have been.
The only speed bump in the writing so far in this series is that he didn't say, "Let me see your balls."
Yeah, which would have been. I don't know how Lyle would have processed that. I think he'd had some trouble. So on to our measurement devices, the chemometer, which I believe last time both of us had her in the kind of mid-50s.
I'm gonna put her about like 58 or 60.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think it's there's going to be fireworks coming up, and she's not going to come out unscathed.
No, because I think what we're about to see Jimmy losing most, if not all, of what remains of his moral standing, which ultimately is going to likely be the downfall of Kim. So whether or not, it's directly related to the Chuck case, whatever happens to her, the Chuck going up against Chuck is what's going to turn Jimmy to Saul, which is what's going to get Kim killed in the end, probably anyway.